Hello, welcome back to Learn Economia. Here we'll be discussing technological dualism aspect. So we will be covering some implications of technological dualism in this particular video. Before starting this video, I request you to like, share and subscribe my channel for more videos. Let's get started. As stated earlier, this video looks at implications of technological dualism. Here we look at technological dualism and aggravation of unemployment problem in the economy. So here we discuss how technological dualism leads to aggravation of unemployment problem in the economy. So with the two sectors, that is a traditional agriculture sector and modern industrial sector, or we could say that the sector, the one sector which uses traditional methods of production and the other sector which uses modern methods of production. So compared to these two sectors, so if you compare these two sectors, we could say that with the two sectors processing typical and distinctly different configurations of production functions, we have already stated that these two sectors of production have different production functions. In one case, where in the traditional one, the production function is something that is considered to be having a variable proportion, whereas in the case of modern sector, we have fixed proportion with respect to production function. So, having this difference in mind, it is now easy to trace as how technological dualism has aggravated the problem of unemployment. When we say unemployment, we have to look at discuss unemployment also with respect to developing countries. Generally, the modern sector in these economies can experience a quick expansion, especially with respect to inflow of foreign capital and enterprise. As a result of this economic expansion, there can also be rapid growth of population with respect to this sector. In fact, the growth of population tend to outstrip the rate of capital accumulation here. But with less capital intensive techniques and fixed coefficients of production, it was not possible for with its highly capital intensive techniques and fixed coefficients of production, it is not possible for the modern sector to generate adequate employment opportunities to deal with the growth of population. We have seen that the population will grow much faster here. So this situation will lead to a contradictory context. On one hand, we have capital intensive techniques and fixed coefficient of production, that is with the same amount of labor, with the same amount of capital that is increased, the same amount of labor is increased. We don't have any opportunity for any variable proportion of production. Both the labor and capital are increased in the same proportion with respect to the modern sector. Here what is the problem is that the population grows in a much faster rate. The consequence is that labor becomes a surplus factor in the modern sector. So what is the way out of the situation? The only way out here is redundant labor has to be shifted to the traditional agriculture sector, and the redundant labor or the surplus labor which is released by the modern sector, this will definitely increase the supply of labor in the traditional agriculture sector. In the initial stages, there is not much problem because it is possible to bring more land under cultivation so as to engage this excess supply of labor that was released by the modern sector. But the problem is that eventually or gradually the inelastic supply of land would come to exhaustion, and as a result of this, all the possibilities of extending cultivation would come to an end. In the meanwhile, redundant labor would continue to pour into the traditional sector from the modern sector. Now, the technical coefficients of production being variable in the sector, the entire additional labor is absorbed. But this would happen at the expense of reduction in the capital intensity of production process. It becomes more labor intensive, and eventually this will lead to use of the entire available land in the economy. As a result, the marginal productivity of labor will decline, it may reach 0, and after a point it would become negative, which results in a scenario of disguised unemployment on a very substantial scale in the economy. Thus, continued growth of population striking against limited capital stock. This would give rise to surplus labor. Then there comes a stream of unproductive workers who appear to be employed, but in fact they constitute disguisedly unemployed group, for they add virtually nothing to the output. We know that even though these people, the people who are considered to be disguisedly unemployed, so even though these people are employed, their marginal contribution or their marginal productivity is something that is 0. So even if these people are taken back from work, or these people are they are removed from their work, that definitely would not affect the total output in the economy. So under such condition, there is no reason for the farmers to seek to apply labor intensive or labor saving innovations, even if it is granted that they know about them and have resources to finance them. This apart, even the incentive on the part of the labor itself to put the increased effort is not bound to found on account of surplus supply of labor. The result is that productivity and earnings of labor will definitely come down. This will definitely lead to their low well-being. Further, it is held that the nature of technical progress, even in the long run, would not alleviate the problem of unemployment. But in the case of modern sector, if you look at, you could see that the technical progress has tend to be capital using or capital intensive. Thus, we have to look at the unemployment scenario here also. On the other hand, until recently, that is prior to Green Revolution, sorry, there was little technical progress in the traditional sector on the account of lack of complementary inputs and smallness of scale of operations. Besides, the problem of disguised unemployment or the problem of marginal productivity of labor falling to 0, this tend to be all the more accentuated on account of the artificially bolstered up wages as a result of trade unionism or by government policy. Such a phenomena of industrial wages outstripping the productivity further stimulates the adoption of labor saving techniques, so that the capacity of industrial sector to absorb population growth is all more undermined. All these factors continue to reinforce and perpetuate the problem of disguised unemployment in the undeveloped economies or developing economies. Now, if you look at the evaluation of the theory of technological dualism, which is a theory put forward by Higgins, there were several economists who have looked at this particular theory, and Boyk is one of the economists or one of the person who have contributed to some evaluation type of analysis into technological dualism. And before starting, let me remind you that Boyk is a person who have contributed a lot to the aspect of dualism, because he has his own arena of contribution. He has contributed to the idea of social dualism, and we will definitely cover social dualism in our upcoming videos. So, as per Boyk's evaluation, it brings out elegantly the underlying cause of historical increase of unemployment and underemployment in the traditional and agricultural sectors of the underdeveloped economies or in the developing economies. At the same time, Higgins' contention that production in the modern sector is invariably carried out with fixed technological coefficient is something that is considered to be contestable. In other sectors of industrial sectors like textiles, leather products, electronics and sugar, there is some good scope for variability of factor proportions. We have seen that in the modern industrial sector, factor proportions are considered to be fixed, but there are some rare sectors, or there are some possibilities of variability of factor proportions within industrial sector itself. This is what is evaluated by Boyk. So even in these cases, in countries like India, capital intensive technologies have been used. This is partly due to the factor price distortions That is while price of scarce capital has been lower, but wages of the abundant factor higher relative to their availabilities. In 1971, we could see that a prominent development economist, Branis, he wrote that the Koreans and the Taiwanese, they are showing a wide range of technological choice in textiles, in electronics, and in plywood industries during the last decade. And what the Japanese were doing is that related to British and the American missionary in the 19th century, the Koreans and Taiwanese are now doing relative to Japanese as well as the American technology. They produce the same quality of textiles and same quality of plywood with 3 to 4 times as much labor input per unit of capital. The subcontracting, which can be so important, is a feature of labor saving technological change, and this is being used increasingly at international level, so as exemplified by the export bonded processing schemes, which you can see in Korea as well as in Taiwan. It follows from the example of Japan, South Korea and Taiwan, that factor proportion in the production of the manufactured products are so rigid, so it has been made out of the theory of technological dualism. Contrary to the factor endowments in developing countries for the use of capital intensive technologies in the modern sectors, advanced developing countries or advanced developing countries, advanced developed countries, they are to blame because the tendencies of foreign private investors as well as official policy of the developed countries with respect to foreign aid, they mostly encourage the adoption of capital intensive technologies in the recipient countries. Further, if you look at the multination corporations, which play a very important role in the industrial development of the developing countries, and these are very unlikely to spend much time in investigating alternative technologies which are more labor intensive and better suited to labor surplus condition of developing economies. These multinational corporations usually prefer to install plants of their mother countries which embody high capital intensive technologies. Besides, the practice of tying foreign aid to developing countries by donor countries to purchase capital intensive capital equipment from them, this is something that is considered to be promoting the use of capital intensive technologies. Further, it has been also found that the producers in the developing countries often attract prestige value to installing modern capital intensive equipment of latest technology imported from developed countries. So here it is considered to be a matter of prestige to use a modern sophisticated capital intensive equipment which is imported from some developed countries, even if the country using this technology is so poor or something that is very much developing only. So they themselves are not interested in investing through R&D activities, labor using technologies that are more suited to their factor endowments of the developing countries. Even if they have factor abundance with respect to labor, even if they have labor abundant regions in their terrain. So further, this Branis, he wrote that even if we concede that there are absolutely no technological choices, there is still the question of changes in output mix. We should take it possible to adjust one's production structure in line of factors.